fights the invisible, the impossible, the unspeakable. Welcome to the greatest playground, history.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, hidden blade for you, because we're talking about the OG Assassin's Creed. Over this weekend, we're seeing Ubisoft announce a slew of Assassin's Creed titles within Infinity, as well as Assassin's Creed Mirage. And I wanted to talk about the OG Assassin's Creed because it looks like Mirage is going to go back to basics. What Assassin's Creed once was before it turned into this kind of role-playing game franchise for whatever reason. And even though I like some of those games, especially Odyssey, I really dug, it's good to see things go back to the bare bones basics. So I wanted to do a retrospective on this game in particular because there's an interesting history with this game and myself that I wanted to share, and then get into the meat and potatoes of why I dig the hell out of the first Assassin's Creed game. So if you're new here, you're into nostalgic content, retrospectives, that type of energy, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing, but congrats, you just subscribed to a man who's 27 years old wearing an AOT dry fit and a Majin chain in your face. You love weebs, don't you? So let's talk about Assassin's Creed for the Xbox 360. The back of the box says, "Master the art of the kill. I have dedicated my life to the study of the deadly arts. I can blend in with any crowd, strike from any direction, and eliminate anyone with a single thrust of my blade. My name is Altair, and my actions will be remembered for ages to come." Indeed, and especially in the games industry, where this may mark the sign of open world game design transforming. Open world gameplay lets you decide how and when to achieve objectives, plan your attack, strike without mercy, and fight your way to escape. And crowds react to your every move and will either help or hinder you. Now, I found the manual for this game particularly interesting, and you're going to see why, because one thing is hilarious, and then another is just a little bit of flavor text. So, upon cracking this open, number one, it's a little thicker than you'd expect, but here they have a sort of breakdown of Desmond Miles, the main protagonist in the game, and his psychological profile, a little bit of backstory on his ancestors, his height, weight. Again, I like that this is almost a profile by Animus on Desmond. And then it walks you through the, I put this in quotes, Animus controls, aka the game controls. And you'll see little things here like high profile. Lucy, this layout is confusing. Why mention high profile mode here if you are not going to describe it till later? Or when we switch the Animus control scheme to the standard video game controls, I guessed that the subject's learning curve would improve, but the increased acclimatization rate we are seeing with these slacker types is astounding. So, a little bit of a jab to the gamers out there who are buying the game. Ubisoft's calling you a bunch of slackers now, it would seem. But yeah, there's little write-ins here all over the manual, giving it a bit of personality, stitching a couple little thoughts in there. Otherwise, going through some of the mechanics in the game, because it was very different for its time if you didn't play Prince of Persia, which we'll also talk about in this video. They talk about the GPS though, but for me, the point that stood out the most, and of course you'll love to see the character models here. This is one of the rare black and white manuals I'll accept because it does kind of match the vibe of the Animus, which is just pure white. But here's the part that I'll admit, it got a good cackle out of me here as I was by myself in the studio space. It's in number 5 here, game structure. An assassin must always gather information about his target and scout the surrounding area in order to plan a successful attack. Here's where Ubisoft just breaks down the formula for the upcoming slew of Watch Dogs, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed. Step 1, viewpoints. The first thing that Altair did upon entering a new district was climb to the top of the tallest building. This gave him a viewpoint from which to scan the surrounding area. Sound familiar? Step 2, investigation. The second step is preparing for assassination by gathering as much detailed information about the target as possible. Information can be obtained through interrogation, eavesdropping, pickpocketing, or with the help of the assassin informers. And then you'd go to the bureau when you think you're ready, and you'd go see the leader of the bureau to obtain the feather. The feather must be dipped in the target's blood and then returned to the bureau leader as proof that the deed is done. And I just thought that was funny because, again, it broke down Ubisoft's open world design for well over a generation, and it really started here. So that's the complete in-box experience for Assassin's Creed. This game isn't too expensive. It's around the $15 to $20 range. I think I said in my Xbox 360 pickup video that this cost me $30. I got it crossed up with something else. I remember seeing this and thinking it was more expensive than I had anticipated, but it is not $30. So I just wanted to write the record on that one. But anyway, let's talk about the OG Assassin's Creed. What an influential game. Again, though, I always have to start any Assassin's Creed conversation since I made my Dark Age of Ubisoft video over on my Mr. Matty channel, that if Prince of Persia did not walk, Assassin's Creed would never have ran. The amount of ideas, concepts, even animations borrowed from Prince of Persia and brought here into Assassin's Creed is staggering, truly stunning. And because Prince of Persia really isn't in the consciousness of the broader games industry anymore, I think it's very easy to forget, especially because Assassin's Creed has transformed so much over time that now it's its own weird thing again, where it's an action RPG more than assassination targets and creeping around levels, stealthing, that type of stuff. It's not even really a stealth series anymore, which again is why it's great to see it looking like it's going to go back to basics. Now, this is also for a lot of people where open world design went to die, because at the time with Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, and Far Cry 3, Ubisoft at this point in time was actually technically firing on all cylinders. You couldn't do it better than Ubisoft. They were the industry standard. The issue, though, is they never evolved beyond that, and I feel like Far Cry 3 was the line in the sand. That's where they drew their creative line in the sand and went, we're never going beyond this. And well and truly, a decade later, after reviewing Far Cry 6 and playing pretty much every Ubisoft game that's come out since then that is open world, they haven't. So for a lot of people, this game erects bad memories. But I think, we got to look at the positive side of things. This game's got style. And especially on the Series X, playing this in back compat, it still looks great. I love the ominous nature of the opening, where you're getting into the animus. You're not sure about your backstory. You're effectively dropped in the middle of what seems to be a crisis. And you're wondering how exploring Desmond's ancestors, this random bartender, what it actually means for the rest of the world, and obviously how they build that narrative out. But then when you get into the animus, you're playing as Altair, you're exploring, you're going through the caves, and Altair is a little overambitious and takes someone out. And now there's been a spark between the assassins and the Templars, and you get betrayed. I just think that's one of the better starts to a video game during the 360 era that I've personally played. Is it perfect? No, but it just brings back so many memories. Like I said, I have a funny history with the Assassin's Creed franchise because to me it was always the leftovers. And by that I mean it was always the game my brother would get during Christmas. Assassin's Creed 1, 2 we both got at the same time, but Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed Black Flag just continued to be my brother's series. And whenever he was done with it, I would get my hands on it. And so Assassin's Creed serves as this series that it was always handed down to me, but it also served as a bit of an awakening. So I'm always very honest with my flaws as a person. And I know this may seem like an out of left field story, but I reflect on Assassin's Creed in a positive way because I'll always remember being a brat when I was in, I think, middle school. And my mom got me, like I said, Assassin's Creed 2 for Christmas. And I remember pouty. If I could go back in time and beat the life out of my past self, show some damn gratitude. That was never even me back then, but show some gratitude. But I was being pouty because it wasn't the game I wanted. I told her originally to take it off the list. She got it anyway. My mom was humble as all could be, was not losing her mind over my attitude. I don't know how. God bless my mother. But anyway, I ended up playing it later that night. I loved it, man. I remembered why I loved Assassin's Creed. I went out and immediately ate my humble pie and submitted a sincere apology to my mother. So Assassin's Creed just feels like a life lesson mixed with the hand-me-downs, and so it brings a lot of nostalgia to me personally. Again, I'm sorry if that was like an out of left field story, but it's certainly one I'll retell when we do a full series retrospective here on the channel, probably around the time Mirage launches. But let's get into the gameplay a bit, because I'm sure a lot of you don't even care about the stories, but I feel like I need to share them because it's a part of this channel. So the gameplay. like I said, very stealth oriented, and it's funny to see how far the series has gone away from this. You would, as the manual showed, go around levels, you'd eavesdrop. I love the way you would mesh into the crowds, the disguising, holding the A button, and you'd sort of blend in while guards would run around. That stuff was awesome. Now, what bugged me when I played this game for the first time ever was that you couldn't kill random civilians. So when I made a mistake and assassinated someone, or I was fighting a guard and I accidentally hacked down a civilian, your synchronization, you'd be desynchronized. Heaven forbid we play an open world game with a sense of freedom. And so the rule structure, when it came to the world of Assassin's Creed, for a while felt so rigid. And I remember that was one of my biggest complaints, even into Assassin's Creed 3. I'm like, look, I don't want to do a GTA murdering spree, but stop punishing me for incidental murder in a video game about killing people. I get it's not lore friendly. Come on, give me a break here. I'm just trying to have a little fun, Anyway, the hidden blade, this is where it was introduced. One of the most iconic tools in video game history, in my opinion. Right up under the sleeve. And that's where the subtlety of the animations work so well for Assassin's Creed. Sometimes you just walk by, tap X, and you just see the blade pop out, your arm slightly sticks out, and the enemy that you just stabbed drops. I don't know, man. There's something about that fluidity, that swagger, I just adore, personally. And beyond that, I know the mission structure for Assassin's Creed 1 really has not aged well. You saw the eavesdropping mentioned. That is another staple of Assassin's Creed that polluted the franchise for far too long. They never evolved beyond that. But yes, eavesdropping was one of the core pillars of the gameplay loop. And you just follow along and just track enemies on rooftops or in crowds, listen to conversations. And it's cool the first, second, third time, but you keep going and keep going. It starts to lose its luster a little bit, unfortunately. And it doesn't age any better. So that's one thing. The other is some of the kind of like mini games in the open world. Those aren't as fun to sink your teeth into. But I think what you're there for is the atmosphere, the aesthetic, the environments, the birth of it all, right? Assassins and Templars facing off. I always found it funny that you were this dude in this white cloak with a hood on, couldn't see his face, looked sus as all get out. Right? And no one could seemingly find you in a crowd and be like, hey, that dude looks like he's about to commit a murder. We might want to stop him. No one had a clue that the hooded man with a blade attached to his wrist was possibly threatening. But you just can't deny that the steady build up to assassinating your target is one of the best parts of gaming, I feel. Just that anticipation, working your way, and then moving on, and eventually taking out your target. I love it. Now, I know in other games, which I love far more, Assassin's Creed 2, especially from what I've heard with Brotherhood, although Brotherhood I never played and beat, so I know. Maybe we'll do that as a first-time playthrough for the channel. That'd be kind of cool. But AC is a series that did evolve its mechanics in certain aspects, especially 1 to 2 and 2 to Brotherhood. I think there were enough new things added there, although I think Brotherhood was called for a long time Assassin's Creed 2.5. I get all of that 100,000%, but there is something special about that original idea, right? In its most raw form, the bare bones, core pillar of the franchise, AC1. I dig it big time. And now I know I haven't talked much about the story, so we can get into that a little bit. What I remember is what I think all of us can recall together. The in and out of the animus. It drove us crazy. And I believe because Ubisoft was so receptive to that feedback, it really did serve to hurt the franchise. Because then the animus story, which, as you know, by the time in Assassin's Creed 3 was such a key component of the overarching narrative, but it was so often requested, just keep us in the world, let us play as Connor, let us play as Altair, etc., that they had to find new storytelling methods to deliver their overall plan for the franchise, and it fell apart, and it started to feel more and more like this thing that just continued to interfere with your fun. You're progressing, you're having a good time, and whoop, white wall comes up, you're out, and suddenly you're talking to Desmond, this bartender who's boring as heck. Yeah, that's what comes to my mind when I think of the Assassin's Creed story. I couldn't tell you much beyond that because that's not the part that stuck with me. It was always the environments, the gameplay, the atmosphere, the vibe. That type of stuff was strong. I just wish that Prince of Persia didn't have to die for Assassin's Creed. I think they both could have coexisted. I don't think they had to borrow from each other as heavily, but certainly Assassin's Creed was the evolution of what Prince of Persia would have become. And I know we had a Prince of Persia game on the 360, don't get me wrong there, but I just feel like that immediately got put to the side the second that Assassin's Creed became a thing. And strangely, again, this was a pure Assassin's Creed game in my eyes because, as we'll get into now, this became an annualized franchise for a while, and that just never made sense to me. Never, ever, ever did it make sense to me why this open world, historically driven assassin game, single player, had to get the Call of Duty treatment, had to get the sports game treatment. But at least you could say this one went through a normal development cycle and wasn't just shot out of a cannon onto the market. It wasn't a thing, so there wasn't any pressure. But eventually, as time went on, there was that pressure. There were tons of studios erected, and they just continued these, granted, full development cycles, but there wasn't wiggle room. You had to be ready for the year you were told to be ready for. And that meant that, again, those ideas, those age-old ideas that you see here in this manual would permeate into the next game, into the next game, into the next game. So good memories and bad for Assassin's Creed, but it's a game that I just love being in the world for. I really, really do. I think this is a host to so many unique ideas, the animus, the assassins, the hidden blades, this idea of exploring history and being a part of it through a set of ancestors. It's just really cool. I don't know. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed, the OG ones, and I just wanted to celebrate it here in this video. So with that, what do you think of the OG Assassin's Creed? I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts down below. Other than that, take great care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.